Okay, we're back. Again, it's very, very important to stay with your video off. It's a little difficult for me to keep my eye on that as well, because if your video isn't off, apart from Zoom problems that may happen, we may have you doing all sorts of very odd things on the recording in the end, and it can be very weird to watch. So if anybody has a question, there are two options. One is to write it in the chat. Another is to speak with your video off, please. And then your voice will be heard, but your face won't be shown in the recording if I use the recording. I see that somebody wrote in the chat room that it sounds like a story of, oh, I forget the word right now. How's it called? Ofachol, the phoenix, right, the phoenix. The phoenix is indeed a very relevant story about this magical creature that every once in a while burns to ashes and is reborn again. And we are all phoenixes in a way. We really, really are, if we allow ourselves to be. So does anybody want to ask something or comment? Write in the chat room if you'd like to. What do you feel when you think about your greatness? Is it comfortable? Does it make you kind of feel uneasy? Do you feel all sorts of inner parts in you shifting uneasily in their seats, or just simply not believing it?
אפשר לשתף?
כן, בהחלט, but it has to be in English. Can you?
Okay, בסדר. So, you know, it's not a coincidence, baby, that yesterday I did something I dreamed about 25 years, I think. I call it Kupat Bri'im. I don't know how to translate it. Instead of Kupat Cholim, Kupat Bri'im.
Okay.
I'm sending healing for 30 years for free. And for many years that I'm wondering, how can I take a little bit money, and I'm ashamed and I don't have the courage and I don't know how to start it. And now I'm doing this project. Yesterday they filmed me, you know, like in the clinica, and then interviewed me, and I could be, you know, like a queen, sitting in the chair and really acknowledging my experience, you know, of 30 years. It's not going,
yes, 30 years of experience is a lot. Yes.
A lot. And I'm so happy that I'm doing it. And I had only one moment of fear, maybe because I'm using money that I don't have. I'm using money that I don't have for 10 years already, since they took my money when I was building. Yes. But I don't care. I don't care about it. I must do it, and I do it, and I'm so happy to do it. So I'm really about, I want to success. To success. To success.
I want to succeed.
I want to succeed. Mm-hmm. It's very strong with me now. And, you know, I was talking also about you in this film.
About me? Oh, okay.
There was a dialogue, because it's a little film. For the image film, it will be very short film, but for when they go into details, they can see the interview, a bigger interview, and then I'm talking about all the tools I'm using, and I'm using voice dialogue, and I'm talking about you. I forgot about you. Ken.
That's funny, and you did it yesterday.
Yes,
Okay.
I did it yesterday. And I have a friend that's living next by to me, but I need to, sometimes I take her out of bed, you know, she's in depression now, and I just knock on the door because she's not answering the phone. I tell her, you must do me my voice dialogue. She said, no, not today. I said, it's an emergency. I did so much emergency treatments. I didn't do her a voice dialogue emergency. I did EFT, but it doesn't matter. Said, no, I'm in stress, I'm in Mitsuka. I must, and then I tell her 5 minutes. She said, okay, 5 minutes. Of course, it wasn't 5 minutes. You know, I finished one toilet paper. Because the little child that I'm neglecting all the time, no, I don't have patience for her. And she's very good at it. She's really better than me, Bemet, was dialogue. Shir Schwartz. She's very good. I send her now invitation for your Zoom.
Okay. Cool.
She's really...
So that is, you know, if I understood what you're saying, that's a really, really important point. So, you know, I'm not going to go very deeply into it, but it's really, really good to remember that if you begin to do things that, how would I say, require more of your greatness, and you acknowledge it and embrace it more and more, it's extremely important to take care of your inner kids, because they can be petrified and they can feel, you know, so scared and so, deserted sometimes. But if you do take care of them as you are building your comfort with greatness, then it can work really, really well. So Sarah, thank you so much. I have to move on to other people, okay? And good luck.
Good luck. But can you tell, רגע, משהו על, to explain what you said? I didn't understand. What do you mean they can feel...
the inner kids. Yes, just imagine that you're starting a huge project. Okay, so not necessarily, but often certain of your inner children can feel really scared about it. What if you don't succeed? What if it's a failure? What if, you know, you lose money? What if you feel ashamed in the end, or whatever? You know, it's always a challenge for them, or for, you know, we have to be very cautious about generalizations, but it's often the case that it's difficult for them. It's difficult for them, but I decided to do the series, for example, you know, not too difficult, but a little difficult. So they need support, okay? And this stabilizes the work.
Yo,
okay?
Wow, תודה שאמרת לי. Thank you. כן, תודה.
Great. I'm glad you asked the question. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's see what's in the chat. Somebody wrote, when I think about my greatness, I think about a space of happiness for being who I really am and shining in the world. But it's also very, very scary. The intensity, the energies that it might take. Will I not burn? Will I withstand these forces? Yeah, that's also very, very pertinent to this issue we're discussing. So there are so many inner sides within us that are not that keen on us experiencing our greatness and building it and acknowledging it. For example, what you seem to be talking about, for many sides of ours, inner sides, inner selves, it seems as if it's a huge effort to be great or to shine or to be, do what we really, really want to be doing. There is a fear, for example, a very common fear, to do harm. If I'm very, very big and strong, I might do harm. And it's true. If you're very, very powerful, you can cause damage also. So what do we do about that? How do we navigate with both being empowered and great and not misusing our strength and power? So you have to build it little by little and to figure it out. And you have to also do what I've been doing for a large part of my life. Is as you can see, I sometimes look back at what brought me to where I am now, which is something that I'm happy about. There's always room for a lot of improvement, but I'm happy with what I am. And I say, well, what brought me from there to here? And the there was really horrible. So, it was a very, very challenging way in so many ways. And I'll tell you more about it in the next parts of the series. But looking back, I can see how I built it in such a way, hopefully, that I won't misuse my powers and I won't tire myself, to death or something like that. So looking at it from the point of view of inner selves, for example, then you say, okay, there's a self that seems to be afraid that it would be taking away from me. Then I would ask, who is it that's feeling this way? And I will figure out how to follow the thread little by little and reach that self and get to know it. Now, this is, one of the basic things that I do in my, in the path that is my path and that I teach, which is called the Flowering Diamond Way. So one very, very important part of it is voice dialogue, which is something that was developed, as I said in the first chapter, by Helen Sidra Stone in the 1970s, and still developing it right now as we speak, I suppose. So this is a method that makes it much easier to figure out who within us is feeling what, and finding really ways that work to work with that and to relate to that part. This isn't a series right now about how to do voice dialogue, but just as a general suggestion, figure out who is actually afraid of something. And then once you do that, you can think together how to move forward while taking care of whoever is afraid, or while taking care to still have enough time to rest and recuperate, or whatever it is you need. Okay? And the fear of being burnt out if you shine too brightly is also very, very common. And sometimes it's based on things that we experienced in our childhood, for example. If we really felt shiny and we got a kind of cold shower or a critical look from our parents or from a teacher, or from our friends or whatever, you know, it can be stamped on our soul in a way that shining is really dangerous. And then there are ways to heal that as well. You know, there are ways, this isn't voice dialogue, classic voice dialogue at least, of going back, really in a way, going back into the past and healing these traumas. And it really works when you know how to do it. And it can even be, you know, from before you were born. And that too can be healed. We'll probably touch on that more and more as this series continues. So thanks for that comment. Another comment. I always tried not to think of myself as great, although I have many parts that are very conscious of my abilities. When you suggested writing the list of my greatnesses, I could suddenly write down even very small things, very little things that I'm pretty proud of. So thank you. Thanks for writing that. Thank you very much. And you know, there are so many things that we just don't take the time to notice. And some of them can be huge things, you know, things like, you know, being a mother or being a father, a good father, you know, good enough father. We're not talking about perfection. You know, that's huge. That's huge, you know, and it deserves acknowledgement, at least by ourselves, if not by our kids, or, you know. And the little things really go unnoticed. And I see it with myself sometimes, you know, sometimes something that used to be difficult really becomes very, very easy for me. And then you stop being, you stop observing it, and you stop being grateful to yourself for making it something easy. Like, I don't know, like doing online talks like this. Years ago, it was just absolutely impossible for me. And now, yes, sometimes it's a bit scary and a bit tricky, and English is, my English is still needs a little more lubrication and stuff. But I'm doing it, you know, and it's very, very easy to forget that it's kind of a little great to do it. Maybe not only a little great, it's for me, it's wow. Okay, so acknowledging more of what's really going on is very, very empowering. And again, the idea is not to be inflated and to think we're, you know, the greatest and the only and all that. The idea is to be empowered so we can really do good for ourselves, for others, for the world, and we can really find our way to shine without being burned, find our way to shine without outshining others. And it is a challenge and it is hard work, but it's really so worthwhile, I think. Another comment. Even if I'm translating from the Hebrew, that's why it takes a bit of time. Even if I'm aware of my huge and wondrous parts, there are still the parts that are depressed and that, how they say, that put more emphasis on the weak parts, those parts that have no control, those parts that feel helpless. And sometimes the identification with these parts hides the greatness, even if it is there. Thanks for that too. That's of course very, very true. And that's one of the big challenges on learning how to live with our greatness in peace. So, of course, there are many, many methods and ways of doing our work. Naturally, I talk about the ways that I use mostly, but there are others. So let's view it from the point of view of inner parts, which is kind of a basic step that's always good to do. You talk about identifying with those parts that feel, for example, worthless. And the thing is that, first of all, it's absolutely essential to identify who exactly is feeling that way. As a rule, it's not enough to just say, I feel. No, because it remains very, very vague for us. But if you figure out that it's a 3-year-old kid that feels powerless or hopeless or whatever it is, or an old woman inside you, or whatever it is, then you know who you're talking to, and you know where it's coming from. And it's very different if it's an old lady within you or a three-year-old. You know, you relate to it in a slightly, or sometimes in a very different way. It depends. So once you know better where this feeling is coming from, and of course it's much more complex than that, but this is the basic stuff, then you can start be a source of nourishment for that part. For example, if there's a part that really, really feels not great, and we all have parts like that, it feels really miserable, depressed, and hopeless, it would generally only work to heal it if I start observing this part and acknowledging its greatness, or the fact that it is okay. You know, that's also a good start. For example, if this tiny little 3-year-old inside me is feeling hopeless, and I figure out why, and he says, I'm no good, you know, and I manage to let him know that he's absolutely good just as he is. And I really make it possible for him to experience it, that I really accept him as he is. Then this little kid will start feeling better. And then this very powerful inner belief that I'm hopeless or worthless or whatever it is, or can do nothing, stops to be something that is so powerful little by little. And this little child can really heal if I do it long enough. This really changes our life. It's not just a theory. It really, really works. You have to figure out how to do it in the right way. I hope this helps. Somebody else writes, there are times when I feel that even some greatness comes in, or I'm not sure I understand what's written here. Oh, I see. The idea here is that sometimes you feel huge and great, and sometimes I feel like nothing. And I move between these two sides without finding a place that can embrace both of them. So this is also a very, very good point. Thanks for it. So the thing that actually works, and we touched upon it in the first part of this call is to manage to hold the opposites within us. So if I accept the part that is feeling nothing, and I accept the part that is feeling the greatest ever, for example, I accept the part that feels like she's the queen of the world and everybody is supposed to do what she says, for example. And she's just the best and she's perfect and she's, you know, huge and great. And we accept that just as a side of ourselves. And then immediately we move to talking with a side that is, for example, it can be many things, but let's say something like a very, very meek nun, very humble, you know, effaced, kind of not even wanting to be seen, perhaps even very, very low key. And I managed to feel this and then this, and perhaps even a few times, you know, then little by little, I become aware of a space or a state of consciousness that we can call something like the aware I. And the aware I is not one of our parts. Again, it's a state of consciousness that allows us to accept all our parts, whatever they are, as natural and normal and okay as they are, and to not identify with any of them, even the ones that make us feel great. So really the secret here is not identifying with greatness, but also certainly not identifying with worthlessness, hopelessness, helplessness, and so on and so forth, but really trying to be big enough to hold both. And this is a kind of training and also a certain type of work that we can learn to do. When I do the work, then I would probably, in the basic voice dialogue format of the work, I would probably first talk with the part in me that is stronger. For example, if the stronger part at that point is the part feeling worthless, then I would start with that. And I would do whatever it takes to get myself to accept it as it is, first of all. And then I would talk with the side that feels that it's, you know, the most important and wonderful in the world. And then I will be in the middle. Now, of course, it's a little more complex than that, and there's a lot to learn about it, and there are ways of learning it available both in Hebrew and in English and in other languages. But try to even just move from one sensation to the other, back and forth, and see what it does to your ability to somehow balance the opposites within you. And it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly the same weight that each part has. It can be, you know, dynamic. But you still keep in touch with both sides. I hope this is helpful in some way. Any last comment? Thank you very much, she says. So thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully, if Zoom holds on like it seems to be doing, we'll meet next Monday with whoever of you feels like coming. And this will also be, this recording will also be on YouTube and Facebook and other places. So many, many thanks to you all. Bye-bye.